of the Real Deal podcast on this 14th of May 2018. I'm your host, Surreal Gerald Quinn, taking you for the next 45 minutes as we discuss the world of sports and pop culture. As always, the call number is 347-215-6180 as we look back on a busy to say at least sports weekend. Got caught up on Atlanta, so we'll talk about that later on in the program. But we begin in the guard with the Garden State, New Jersey gets gambling legalized, sports gambling legalized. That's the story of the sports world, despite what's going on with the conference finals in the NBA and the conference finals in the NHL. And listen to me, this is something that we have saw coming down the long time ago. It's no shock or surprise to anybody that this was going to happen. And I look at this like prohibition must have been looked upon back in the 20s or so. People are going to drink. Okay, people are going to drink. So it's like if somebody chooses to drink themselves to death or to waste the family fortune, the family money, the family bank account on drinking, that's their business and that's their problem. Same thing with gambling. People are going to gamble. People gambling is a multi-billion-dollar business worldwide, across America, worldwide. So to me, I never understood why sports gambling, why it took this long for it to be legalized in any states in New Jersey or any other state. Right now, it's only legalized in I believe four other states, Nevada, Nevada, and like three other states. So I think it's legalized maybe in five total states. The bottom line is, and they predict in the next 5 years that at least 32 more states will join New Jersey and Nevada and Montana. I think Montana is one of those states as well. Pennsylvania is also in terms of legalizing gambling. And again, I don't understand how it took this long. If someone wants to bet on a game, so be it. NFL, again, you're going to see a lot of these teams, not teams, but a lot of these leagues find, now they're going to be scrambling to find ways to capitalize on this as they should. This is business, and it has a chance to make for the teams tens of millions of dollars, maybe even more, hundreds of millions of dollars. So right now you're going to have teams going. You're going to have leagues trying to find ways to monopolize this and to capitalize on this. You're going to see all kinds of stuff going on in the next few years with this. Yeah, again, I don't see anything wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with betting. There's nothing wrong with placing a bet. Just like again in the 20s, I wouldn't believe that there was nothing wrong with having a drink. I think this is just this is the American way as far as I'm concerned. So again, this is something that to me was long overdue. I don't think it's going to impact one bit what happens on the court or on the field. I think you're going to see from a technological standpoint, people, you'll be able to make bets over your cell phone, smartphone, whatever you have. You'll be able to make bets. I mean, who knows? Probably in your seats. The way how fast technology moves. So this was something that again was going to happen. It was bound to happen, and it was just a matter of when, not if. Again, it is expected in the next 5 years that at least 32 states will join New Jersey with in terms of legalizing sports gambling. 4 minutes after the 7 o'clock hour on this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. When we return, we will look back at the Eastern Conference Final, Game 1, and preview tonight's Western Conference Final. We are live, YouTube, Blog Talk Radio, Real Deal Sports, Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast as we get ready for a game one of the Western Conference Finals. Of course, last night, yesterday afternoon, you had the Boston Celtics manhandling the Cleveland Cavaliers 108-83. The game was never really close. Cleveland cut the lead to 14 at the end of three quarters. At the end of the third quarter, then Boston came out, hit them with a quick 7-0 run, and that was all she wrote. Boston dominated this game from basically the opening tap from a Jalen Brown layup. Boston controlled this game. They controlled the tempo. Again, defensively, their defense was spectacular. Even though Cleveland did miss, I saw this stat today. They did miss 20 open 3-point shots. Again, I don't. They were 426. I don't think 20 of those 3-point shots were open. Like, I don't know how they gauge what's an open shot. I don't think it was that bad. I would say half, maybe 14, maybe 13 or 14. I didn't see 23 open 3-point shots. I think Boston's defense was better than that. But Cleveland did miss a number of 3-point shots, did miss a number of 3-point shots that they normally would make. But the bottom line is, listen, Boston has guys that they can throw at LeBron James. They have at least 4 or 5 guys that will at least make LeBron break a sweat. Now again, there's no Kawhi Leonard, there's no guy, even Jimmy Butler, in terms of a guy who can match up with LeBron and make him go, and make him play both, not only play all league, all NBA caliber defense, but also make him work on the offensive end. Marcus Morris had a tremendous game. Not in so much, it wasn't about his defense. No, Marcus Morris is not a lockdown defender by any stretch of imagination. Marcus Morris is he's a good team defender. Has good lateral movement. Strong upper body. A good can somewhat physically match up with LeBron. But let's not kid ourselves and thinking Marcus Morris all of a sudden can holds the key to the series as far as his defense on LeBron. What Marcus Morris did yesterday, his best defense against LeBron James yesterday was his offense. 21 points, 10 rebounds. That was and making 3-point shots. That was his best defense against LeBron. This is a series where LeBron will not be able to rest as much on defense because he's going to be facing somebody, whether it is Marcus Morris, uh, uh, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Al Horford, whoever, more than likely somebody who can score the basketball. And that was something he was not facing for the most part in the Toronto series. So he's going to have to play both ends of the court. He's going to have to play both ends of the court for basically maybe the first time in these playoffs, to be honest with you. I thought, he got a chance to rest on defense against the Pacers as well because they didn't have a guy that can make him work on the defensive end. So, this will be Boston not only has players that they can throw at him, they also have players that can make him play defense. And to me, that is your best defense against LeBron James is what you can do offensively. Again, what Boston really didn't, I don't think Boston exposed anything we didn't know about. Cleveland's defense is still not very good. Boston got shots, Boston basically got anything they wanted in terms of shots. They knocked down 11 3-point shots. That was a game where, again, the tone was set by, I thought, two things. One, I thought the tone was set by LeBron James's just lack of aggressiveness in the beginning. I'm not gonna call him. It kind of took too long to get into the game. Wanted to get other guys going. I think in this type of series, LeBron James has to be in attack mode from the beginning. He has to come out like he did similar game 2 Indiana, game 2 Toronto, where he has to absolutely lay the hammer down, and then guys have to follow him. If he has to have like a 10, 15, 16-point quarter, because the bottom line is Boston can guard those other guys. Cleveland does not have any other. I saw LeBron James. Cleveland doesn't have a guy for the most part maybe with the exception of Rodney Hood that can get his own shot. So Boston can lock up those other guys. LeBron has to come out and really be a scorer in this series. You can't have any 15, 20 point games. He has to hit Boston with 30 between 30 and 35 a night for Cleveland to have a chance in this series because Boston can shut down those other guys. Also moving forward, I would like to see Cleveland force Brad Stevenson's hand in terms of the lineup. I think you should see lineups with Tristan Thompson, take J.R. Smith off the floor, and have Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love on the front court. Tristan Thompson played well last night, had 8 points, 11 rebounds, had 4 offensive rebounds. Really played. I thought played was one of the few Cavaliers that played that actually played well. I thought for the most part, I thought Rodney Hood had a decent game, but Thompson played 20 minutes. I expect to see Tristan Thompson on the court longer for about 27 to 30 minutes in game two. Also, I think Ty Lue might want to try a lineup where LeBron is at center. And the reason so LeBron at center, you can have, George Hill, Smith, Corver, and Rodney Hood the four. This is where Rodney Hood is going to have to play a major factor in this series because I believe that LeBron James at center lineup would force Boston's hand, would basically force them to take either Horford or Marcus Morris off the floor. More than likely Marcus Morris because Horford probably is their most valuable player. So I think that he had like right now Boston matches up perfectly with Cleveland in terms of that lineup with having Morris and Horford, and it was again ingenious by Brad Stevens to start Marcus Morris and have Horford matched up on Kevin Love and Morris matched up on LeBron James. Kevin Love, Al Horford had Kevin Love for breakfast, lunch, and dinner yesterday. I mean, he dominated that matchup. Kevin Love had no chance against Al Horford last night, yesterday afternoon. So you want to keep that matchup if you're Boston, but if you're Cleveland, you want to force Boston's hand in terms of making them take one of those guys off the floor for a few minutes. Because here's what you do know. You know that Boston is not going to live and die with either Marcus Morris or Al Horford post-ups. That's not how they run their offense. Their offense is predicated on ball movement, motion. I mean, they a lot of ball movement, a lot of passing. They don't do a lot of posting up. They're not classic traditional, and they're not the main teams in the league that do traditional posting up outside of Philadelphia. And of course, the Pelicans with if they healthy DeMarcus Cousins. That's just not today's NBA. So to me, I want to force. If I'm Ty Lue, I want to see two possible lineups in terms of Thompson, Love on the front court, moving James to the small forward, or moving James to the center and surrounding him with 4 shooters, which will make Rodney Hood a major player in this series, and Jordan Clarkson. See, those guys. That's one thing. I think Cleveland has to get something out of those guys, especially if J.R. Smith is only going to give you 4 points. So I think Clarkson and Hood have to play a role in this series for Cleveland to win, to allow them some flexibility with their lineups. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. When we come return, we'll have tonight's headlines, but before that, we will preview and look ahead to tonight's Western Conference Finals Game 1, Houston hosting Golden State. That's coming up, and much, much more on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. As we are live here on YouTube. We are live here on YouTube and also Blog Talk Radio. This podcast, of course, will be streaming probably, I would say, 30 minutes after its conclusion on YouTube. You'll be able to catch the broadcast in its entirety on on my YouTube channel. So I will be posting that on my various platforms, on various Facebook, Instagram. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at William Jura, or follow me on Instagram at Rillo Juro Quinn. So game one of the Eastern Conference Finals in the books. LeBron's really not concerned, and nor should he. He's been down 1-0 before on the road a few times. Whether it's you can blame Oklahoma City, Chicago. So he's been down this road before. Should not be too concerned. But the bottom line is Boston is a better team than either Toronto or Indiana. So I think that this will be. I think this is going to be Cleveland's toughest series. I really do. Again, I still got to stick with my pick. Cleveland in 6, though. Not as confident moving forward about that as I was. Say, this time. About 28 hours ago. But you see what a series really looks like in game two. Game two kind of shows you what direction that series is going in for the most part. It's a telling game, so we'll see what adjustments Cleveland does make. We'll see if they can knock down some threes, knock down some open threes that they missed in game one, and I'm sure. For sure, we will see a much more aggressive and assertive LeBron James come game two. But again, he's going to need a lot. He's going to need help against this balanced Boston team. Golden State, of course, Golden State for the first time since the Clipper series, first round Clipper series back in 2014, will begin a series on the road. They lost that series, of course, and that's the last Western Conference series that Golden State lost against Chris Paul's Clippers. Seemingly it was like forever, 4 years ago, back in 2014. A classic series, by the way, 7-game series with Chris Paul, and that really. Now I know they had kind of emerged in 2013, beating Denver and taking San Antonio to 6 games, but really they that series, the San Antonio series, along with the Clipper series of 2014, let you know what we could be in store for with Golden State moving forward. So Chris Paul, one of the very few players that have seen Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green walk off the floor in defeat over the last 4 or 5 years, gets his shot at Golden State once again at the highest level at the conference finals. Again, they'll Golden State, as they should be, is the favorite in this series. A lot of people think Houston can cause some problems. I just don't think that Houston is ready for this level with Golden State. Golden State. And I've really been listening to Golden State over the past couple of days. They are ultra confident. I mean, and again, this is not just the players. This is from Steve Kerr on down. They are ultra confident that they will handle Houston. Again, I picked this series in 6 games. To me, I would not be surprised if it went 5. This game one is an absolute must-win for Houston if they have any chance in this series. Golden State is going to get one of these first 2 games. If you're Houston, you rather it be game 2 than game 1. Okay, if you're Houston, you win tonight. You can live with a game 2 loss. Houston was a great road team. Houston was a great road team this year. They won 1. 1-1, cool. Houston does not want to go into game 2 down 1-0 at home. They don't want to go into game 2 because Golden State will absolutely go for the jugular at that point. At that point, Golden State will be thinking about a sweep. So if you're Houston, this is when I mean must win, and normally I don't normally say must win in game ones. Game ones, this is a must win for Houston game one. And to me, everybody's talking about Clint Capella. You can talk about the Houston role players. This is all about James Harden. I feel like Chris Paul will play well. Well, will play well. He'll be solid he'll be solid for the most part. But this is about James Harden. James Harden in this postseason is only shooting 40%. He's had about 3 or 4 explosive quarters that make his numbers look better than what they really are. I understand he's averaging 28 a game, but the bottom line is he's had about again 3 or 4 quarters where he's popped in anywhere from 15 to 20 points that make his numbers look better, look a whole lot better, and make his play look a whole lot better than it actually has been. James Harden in this is a series that takes you from all star to superstar. It's a defining series for James Harden, and we've seen guys in the past fold at this stage. We've seen guys in the past take their games to another level. Chris Webber had a chance in 2002 to become a superstar against the Los Angeles Lakers. Instead, it was Mike Bibby. And Webber, treated the basketball like it was a hot potato over the course of that series. Kobe Bryant, 2001 against the San Antonio Spurs. Um, 45 in game one. The rest was history. At 45 in game one, set the tone for that entire series. The Lakers end up sweeping the series in 2001 and going and won a championship. So this conference finals can either make or break guys who are on that cusp of superstardom. I don't think James Harden is a superstar in my book. I'll call him, he's an all-star. He's a franchise player. To me, James Harden is not a superstar. James Harden has a chance to raise his game, to raise his stature as a superstar player in this series. You go out there, play great against Golden State. They will be a heavy favorite in the championship, prohibitive favorite in the championship. I shouldn't say overwhelming, but at least a odds-on favorite in the championship, whoever they play. But this is a career-defining series for James Harden. So, I'm not even gonna say as much for Chris Paul. Chris Paul is going to the Hall of Fame, and Harden will be in the Hall of Fame. But Chris Paul is the number 2 on his team. James Harden is the guy who's going to be the MVP. He's the one. Chris Paul has been, he's had a couple shaky moments in the postseason, but for the most part, you look at Chris Paul's numbers in the postseason. Look at Chris Paul's overall play. He's been a above average postseason player. He really has. He hasn't really had. I don't, maybe with the exception of the Houston series in 2015, that may have been only Chris Paul's only bad real playoff series in his career, to be honest with you. That collapsed 3 years ago against Houston when they blew the 3-1 lead. Outside of that, Chris Paul has been great in the postseason. This is a James Harden series. I know what I'm gonna get out Kevin Durant. We know Draymond Green has been playing great. I feel like Chris Paul will be solid. A couple of the Houston role players will play decent. But to me, it's all about James Harden. 347-215-6180 is your call number when we return. Tonight's headlines and much, much more on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 55 minutes after the 7 o'clock hour on this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. Of course, you have Game One, Houston Golden State. First time Houston has, of course, the home court advantage. First time Golden State will start a series on the road for the first time since 2014. Golden State is still the favorite to win this series, still the odds-on favorite to win the NBA, to win their third championship in 4 years. Should be an entertaining series. A lot of offense. He had both teams these are the two best offensive teams in basketball. Frankly, two of the best offensive teams that we've seen in a long time in the NBA. Even in this era where it's predominantly that has been predominantly offensive dominated over the last 3 or 4 years, with the rules really being designed to increase points and freedom of movement within the game. So, but these two teams do it in different ways. I mean, Golden State's going to move the ball. Everybody touches the ball. You have catch and shoot. You have Klay Thompson, great catch and shoot player. You have Steph Curry, Durant. All those guys can catch and shoot. They have guys that just a bunch of cutters. They get a lot of layups. They are not, and this is to me the difference. They are nowhere near as dependent on the 3-point shot as the Houston Rockets. Nowhere near as dependent on the 3-point shot as the Rockets. Houston, of course, famous for the isolation basketball with Harden and Chris Paul. The less of that, the better for the Houston Rockets. I mean, I don't think that isolation basketball is beating Golden State, a studied diet of it. Bits and pieces of it at the right times. Harden, I don't see how many adjustments that Houston will make offensively as far as their philosophy. I think D'Antoni, Harden, Paul has their system with what they do. But again, I don't like a lot of isolation basketball against Golden State. I just don't think that, Cleveland, if you have LeBron James, if you have Kyrie Irving, that's one thing. And again, I didn't agree with it from that standpoint. But again, I think that plays right into the hands of Golden State. I think you have to have solid, above average shot selection to beat a Golden State team. I really do. And I think that, again, I think Golden State, I still think the formula against Golden State is not offense. I think it's defense. I still think pounding the ball, and you have a quality big man pounding the ball inside, post ups, slowing the game down, getting the game dirty. I still think that is the way to beat Golden State. I just don't think that I don't think that you're beating Golden State running and gunning and shooting a bunch of threes. I just don't see it. Because I just think Golden State, I know that Golden State has more weapons than any team in the league, including Houston. So we'll see what happens in Game One, which will start in about a little over an hour on TNT. Tonight's headlines: D'Angelo Hall retires after 14 seasons. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. Of course, spent the last 2 or 3 seasons really battling injuries. Had a nice career with the Reds, with Washington. Was at his absolute best though when he was Atlanta Falcons. And D'Angelo Hall was Atlanta Falcon. He was a legit top 5 cornerback, Pro Bowl cornerback with the Falcons. Not a Hall of Famer. Again, very good player, tough player. Could have made the transition to safety successfully had he been able to stay healthy, I feel. But very good player. I don't think it comes as any surprise. I probably think this retirement is like 1 year too late. It's 1 year late, to be honest with you. I think he probably, it's been done for. He was probably 3 or 4 years past his prime. But again, had a very good career, and certainly seems like a guy who would be a good corner, secondary coach. I could see him being an assistant coach somewhere in the future. I think that will be right up his alley moving forward. Nationals sweep the Diamondbacks. They are 13-2 in their last 15 games. They're getting great pitcher. Max Scherzer is headed towards another Cy Young. Best right now, pound for pound, Scherzer's the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, he's been spectacular to start off this season. He's headed towards another just tremendous season. And again, I mentioned this on the program a couple of weeks ago. It was only a matter of time before the Nationals got their stuff together, and they still have some guys who are banged up on the DL with a couple of injuries. Daniel Murphy, Zimmerman. They still have a few guys that a number of guys that they're going to eventually get back, and they will, without question. I don't believe Philly, Atlanta, Met, and New York are all improved teams, but the Nationals will win this division by 8 to 10 games. They will run by, I will say by June 1st, Nationals will have a 4 or 5 game lead. I don't trust any of those teams. None of those teams above the Nationals know how to win. It was just a matter of time before Nationals take complete control of that division, as they are again playing excellent baseball right now, and it's all being led by the Nationals, by their pitching, led by, of course, by Max Scherzer. Yankees are the best team in baseball right now. They are on a stretch where, you know, they look like an absolute machine. And it's not like you look who they're beating here. I mean, they're taking out Cleveland, they've taken down the Angels, they're taking out, they won a series against Boston. So the Yankees are rolling right now. Again, best team in baseball. Again, my World Series pick. My pick was my pick to win it all, frankly, and they're playing like it right now. Again, remember here's the key thing about the Yankees: they have the assets, the prospects to go out and get any pitcher they want at the All-Star break, at the trade deadline. I've said this before, and I fully believe that Madison Bumgarner will be available come July. So don't be surprised if he's a New York Yankee. Like I'm telling you right now, Madison Bumgarner will be available come the trade deadline. I know San Francisco has played above expectation, but you right now would be a perfect time to trade Bumgarner in July, and you can get a boatload of prospects. You can really set your future with the right trade for Bumgarner if you're the Giants. So expect him, Machado, those two guys will be dominating the headlines come the trade deadline without question. Capitals up 2-0 against Tampa Bay. Again, sometimes when conquer your postseason demons, and the Capitals taking out Pittsburgh in 6 games in Pittsburgh, you get over that hump. Everything else seems like it's gravy at that point. Right now, the Capitals look like the best team in hockey, and the Capitals are playing with just a joy. They're playing with a freedom that we have never seen them play with in recent memory. Ovechkin has been dominant in the postseason. Kuznetsov has been great. They've gotten enough goaltending out of Hopi. Right now they are, of course, in total control of that series. And we know in hockey how things can change. There's no such thing as home ice in hockey, as far as I'm concerned. Don't be surprised if Tampa Bay came to Washington and swept Washington in those 2 games. Tampa Bay is that good. I don't see that happening. I think Washington will win the series in 5. And you look at it now, the Western Conference. I mean, Winnipeg, Vegas. I think Washington's better than both of those teams, to be honest with you. So, again, in hockey, you never know any one of these 4 teams could probably win it. If you're the NHL, you're hoping for a Vegas, Washington, Stanley Cup for a rating standpoint. You need Ovechkin in the Stanley Cup final. Like you have to have. He's the biggest star remaining by far, with Crosby out of the mix. He is by far the biggest star remaining. So you need a Ovechkin Stanley Cup, and it looks right now the Capitals are halfway there, playing with a freedom that we haven't seen them play, that we've never seen this team play with in recent memory. So we'll see what happens with that. When we return, we'll talk about Tiger and Atlanta. That's coming up on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I got a chance to watch Tiger yesterday at the Players Championship, and of course, anytime Tiger Woods is in the mix, it obviously takes the interest of the event to another level. He was 11 under for the tournament, got as high as 14 under. Got as high as 14 under. Of course, had a missed eagle putt at 11 that would have gotten him to 14 under. That would have gotten him to 14 under, and then missed a putt on 14 that really ended any chance that he had of catching Webb Simpson, which I don't think he was, but really really kind of set him back, and he ended up going. After that bogey putt, he finished 2 over from that point on, from holes 15 to 18. But regardless of that, it has to be considered a major success. Him playing at that level, I thought he putted very well despite the missed putt on 14. I thought he drove the ball well, hit a couple of monster drives, and this is. I believe that he's going to win at least one major this year. I really do. I think that he's getting a lot of reps in. He's playing a lot. He's driving the ball. Again, it's just a matter of being able to put together that. I think it's just a matter of him being able to get off to a quick start at a major tournament. It seems like he'll have two decent rounds here, and then he'll explode for a great round when he's clearly out of the tournament. Remember, he barely made the cut. He barely made the cut. I mean, he almost missed the cut. So he goes from almost missing the cut to basically, in contention in the final round. And again, I think he's very close to being in a position to where he can win a major. I don't think he's that far away. Most importantly, if we've been talking about this throughout the course of his comeback, there's been no complaints from him whatsoever about pain, any back pain whatsoever. So he's healthy, but it's a matter of him being able to put together a couple of rounds to where he can go into a final round, one with a lead or within striking distance. 2 or 3 shots within striking distance in the final round of a major. And I think he's very close. I fully expect him to be in contention at the U.S. Open, either at the U.S. Open or at the British Open, the Open Championship. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win a major before the year's out. I don't think he's that far away. This was a tournament that was loaded with talent. You had at one point, out of the top 10 players, you had 9 major winners who were on the leaderboard at one point in time. So this was not, this was a loaded field at the Players Championship. And again, you can put, if he can find a way to really put together a big time opening round at a major and kind of set himself up for the weekend, I think he'll really be staring at possibly winning a major. What's happening is he gets off to these slow starts, then he'll either have a hot third round or a great final round, and it'll be too late. So, but last night, yesterday he was spectacular, and he really played great over the weekend. To be honest with you, the third and fourth round he played great, both those rounds, but got off to a slow start on Thursday and Friday. That kept him from catching Webb Simpson. So I got caught up on the Atlanta finale. Yes, was it? Yes, I think I saw it. Yeah, I watched it yesterday. I'm not to say it was underwhelming. It would be strong. Comparing it though to other episodes, whether it's Teddy Perkins, Alligator Man, The Woods. Some of the, they had some classic episodes this season. These shows are in a conundrum with the season finale because sometimes you're looking for that scene stiller, a show stiller. You're looking for that major happening to occur in the finale, and a lot of times and I think this show is coming. I know it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I think Atlanta will return for season three. FX will be stupid not to bring it back. Best show on television. But I think a lot of these shows are in a tough spot trying to wrap up one season and open up a story to the next. So I think that hurts the finale a lot of times with these shows. Again, this was a good finale. It was a solid finale, not great again as in comparisons to some of the other episodes this season, but solid. I expected Earn and Paperboy to kind of go their separate ways, but it does. What happened on the plane makes sense. Earn is his cousin. Earn does have his best interests at hand, and it seems to me like what happened at the airport that Earn kind of is going a little dark in terms of that. From a moral standpoint, Earn was perceived as being, especially with the Fubu episode, perceived as being this good guy, and the movie pulled off in the airport. You know, basically taking the gun, and you knew that gun was going to come back as soon as Paperboy talked about that gun, basically in one of the opening scenes. You knew that gun was going to come back before the episode was over. You just knew it. And again, Earn did was the best interest of Paperboy, his cousin, and really kind of what it was a boss move. It really was a boss move. And it's kind of like sending a message like, I'm your
19
manager.
seconds.
Not only am I your cousin, I'm your manager. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. That means a rapper, somebody got to go to jail. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Now, the reason why he did that was he wanted Clark County. If Clark County gets locked up, then Paperboy becomes the headline to that tour. So that's why he did it. So it definitely was a savvy, cunning, and it was a boss move without question. Clark County was, just made was just a step ahead of it, and put the gun in his manager's, ended up putting the gun in his manager's bag. So again, I fully expect the show to be back next season. I cannot see them shutting like they walking away from the show. Again, it's the best show on television. FX is a station where your ratings don't have to be great. I mean, you don't have to you don't have to have Walking Dead, Breaking Bad type ratings to survive. So I think Atlanta will be back for season three, but don't be surprised if it doesn't come back until 2020. We know how these shows goes, how it goes in television with some of these popular shows. That a lot of these artists, especially a lot of these shows, will make you wait. Uh, Child is, he has a lot going on with his
10
music.
seconds.
Expecting probably he'll be going on tour, things of that nature. He'll be making movies, so we'll see what happens with that moving forward. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I will see you next time. Enjoy Game One of the Western Conference Final, Houston, Golden State. I'm out.